Hey guys, today's lesson we're going to talk about how we can solve radical equations. If we take a look at our notes, again, there's a blank copy of the notes posted. You guys can fill these out as we're going through it. We're treating this like this is a normal class. We're still looking to find solutions, roots, x-intercepts, whatever you want to call it. So we're looking for an x equals, just like we did when we were graphing or when we were factoring. The nice part about this is sometimes there are easier ways than having to factor. Those of you that don't like factoring, hey, you get a break from that right now. Our goal today is to end up with stuff squared equal to a number. I'm going to keep coming back to that. I'm going to go through some examples and then I want you guys to try some. For this first one, notice this equation is a little different because we have no b term. There's no bx. So we want to use square roots when we don't have a bx term. I have a and I have c. Notice we're not equal to 0. That's actually okay if we're using square roots. So our goal, remember, is we're trying to get stuff squared equal to a number. Well, right now I have a is squared, but I still have c over here. So my first step, I'm going to rewrite this. I've got 2x squared plus 1 equals 9. I need to move that 1 over. So we're going to be doing some solving equations here. I still have a number. I don't want to have a number. I just want to have x squared equal to a number. So I'm going to divide both sides by 2, and I get x squared is equal to 4. Now, once we have reached the goal that's up here, we want to get rid of the exponent. The opposite of squaring something is square rooting it. Hey, maybe that's why it said square root in the directions up here. I'm going to take the square root here, take the square root here, because whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other side. The square root of 4 is 2 and negative 2. My two answers, x is equal to 2, x is equal to negative 2, or if you wanted to write it as x equals plus or minus 2, that would also work. Think back to factoring, think back to graphing. Usually we had two x-intercepts. It's the same thing here. I'm going to walk through another example and then I want you guys to try some. On the next one, I want to get x squared by itself. So I need to solve my equation. Again, you should be working this out on your own. Writing it out means that there's a better chance you're going to remember it instead of just watching this video. Now I have x squared equal to a number. To get rid of that exponent, we need to do the opposite. So I'm going to take the square root here, square root here. And so when I do that, the square root of 9, x is equal to 3. But remember, negative 3 times negative 3 also gets me a 9. So I've got positive 3 and negative 3. Or if you don't want to write that much, you could do x is equal to plus or minus 3. Why don't you try the two below? Pause the video, try it, and then we'll see if we match up on answers. On this first try it, you should have ended up with 3 and negative 3 again. On this one, when you solve it, you end up with x squared is equal to 3. When we take the square root of both sides of that, we're actually just going to go ahead and say, hey, my answer is x equals plus or minus the square root of 3. I don't need to change it to a decimal. I'm just going to leave it like that. All right, we've got one other type of example that I want to look at. So taking a look at example 2, again, I'm going to go through two problems like I normally would in class, and then I'm going to have you guys try too. This one, little different. Again, notice I don't have the equation that looks like what's up here. Okay, remember we had no b term up here. Down here, because this is getting squared, we really still have an x squared. So we're still missing that b term. I'm not going to distribute here. We're just trying to get x squared by itself. So I'm going to get rid of this number first. 3 times 1/3 gets me to 1, but whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other side. Again, you should be filling this out on your notes as we go. So this cancels out, and I'm left with this. And over here I have 21. Now that I have something squared, all of this in parentheses is being squared, so a little different, I actually need to go ahead and get rid of that exponent. When I do that, I'm left with x plus 5 over here, and I can't take the square root of 21 and get a whole number. That's not a perfect square, so I'm just going to leave it as the square root of 21, but I do want to go ahead. Anytime we take the square root, remember up here, we were putting plus or minus, we put plus and minus, so I want to go ahead and write this as plus minus square root of 21. Last step, we're still trying to get x equals, so I actually need to subtract 5 here and subtract 5 here, meaning my answer is going to end up being -5 plus or minus the square root of 21. I know that answer looks really ugly. It is a really ugly answer, but hey, not all answers are going to be pretty in math. So here's what the final answer looks like. I'm going to go ahead and do one more, and then like I said, there are 2 that I want you guys to try. Over here, remember our goal, we're trying to get stuff squared equal to a number. Right now, 3 is not getting squared, it's not in the parentheses, so I'm going to divide by 3 on this side and divide by 3 on this side. A little bit of CNN news for you guys. And that's going to leave me with this squared is equal to 7. I have everything getting squared because we're in parentheses on this example. So to undo that, I'm going to go ahead and take the square root here. That's going to leave me with x minus 2 equals plus or minus. We need that plus minus sign, square root of 7. I still don't have x by itself though, so I need to move that 2 to the other side. Again, we're going to end up with an ugly answer, but hey, that's going to happen sometimes. Here's what my 2 solutions are, my x-intercepts, my roots, whatever you want to call it. Try these next 2 for me. Let's see if we end up matching up on answers. So pause the video, try it, and then play again to see if we match. On this, I end up getting x is equal to 20 for a solution and x equals -6. Over here, I ended up with x equals 2 and x equals -1. And then if you want to try example 3, kind of just putting everything together, you should end up getting no solution, because what's going to happen is I'm going to end up with x plus 2 equals the square root of -2, and you can't take the square root of a negative number. You end up with a imaginary number. Unfortunately, we don't get to talk about that in Algebra 1. So what we say for this is this actually has no solution. This quadratic will never cross the x-axis. The parabola would end up looking something like this, or maybe something like this, but it's not going to cross the x-axis. Use these notes. You've got a couple problems that I want you to try, and I will talk to you guys later in the